Dominic, what a spoil sport. Why do you doubt it?
Well, the science is actually quite surprising. The carbon dating of the body actually shows that the skeleton in the car park died either 25 or 35 years before the Battle of Bosworth. But the research team accounted for that by saying he probably had a fish-rich diet, so they changed the numbers. The paternal line DNA, which is the most important one for Richard, that's his Plantagenet DNA, he doesn't have it. He's not a Plantagenet. And the researchers said, well, that's probably because there was an illegitimacy somewhere in the line of succession. The eye colour and the hair colour in the DNA code are for blonde and blue. But actually, all the earliest pictures we have of Richard show him dark. And the researchers said, well, that's because the Tudors changed the paintings because they thought the Tudors thought, dark was bad. And then finally, the scoliosis you mentioned. There's no account in Richard's lifetime that he had any sort of spinal or back deformity. That came later with the Tudors, who also said that he gestated for 2 years in the womb. He was born with hair down to his shoulders and teeth. But what we see with the skeleton in the car park is not a hunchback. It is mild scoliosis, which actually in all likelihood would have been covered by clothes or armour. So actually the science is a long way from proving it definitively. What we do have is the mitochondrial DNA you mentioned, showing that he came from the right maternal group. But all mothers give it to all their children. So in a very small period of time, you have a large number of people who have it. And when you're talking about the aristocracy of the late medieval period, someone buried in a friary somewhere, it's really not unlikely that there were many people who shared that group, even at the Battle of Bosworth.
You've made a lot of interesting points there. Let me just pick you up on the hunchback point. Did you say in passing there that there was no contemporary evidence that he had a hunchback or other deformity of the spine, that only comes with Tudor and Shakespearean propaganda later?
That's absolutely right. Yeah, there's no contemporary description of it at all. And it comes with the writers who, one in particular, had been saying very nice things about Richard during his lifetime, what a wonderful king he was, what a munificent leader. But then as soon as Henry VII comes in, he changes his tune and says that Henry VII is the saviour, Richard was evil. And then we start seeing these physical descriptions, because in the medieval mind, physical deformity or infirmity spelled some sort of inner moral corruption. And so that's when that all begins. And the hunchback dates from that period, not from his lifetime.
We didn't mention earlier that Richard is defeated at the Battle of Bosworth by Henry Tudor. Henry Tudor becomes Henry VII at that point, and he founds the Tudor dynasty, which of course includes Henry VIII and Elizabeth I. Now, is it difficult for you to speak up and say this? Because obviously we've all had a kind of national party celebrating the fact that we found Richard III in the car park. Such a wonderful story. Is it difficult to go against this current?
I mean, it is a great story, and when it all happened in 2012 and then the burial in 2014, the nation needed a bit of a fillip, and we know that royal events do give a boost and people enjoy them. So yes, it's not a particularly popular view, and people don't always like hearing it, but I think it's important because it's about our relationship with the past. Do we just say that it's fine for us to mould it to become what we want it to be, or does it matter what history is? And when you see things like the way Vladimir Putin uses history. I mean, I'm not equating the University of Leicester and the Church of England with Putin, but, history matters. We think it doesn't, but then at times it pops up and comes very much to the forefront. And I think we do need to be honest vis-à-vis our history. And, I wouldn't say categorically it's not Richard, but I don't think you can say, as the researchers did, that they're 99.99% certain it is. The science simply doesn't back that up.
Is that what they said, 99.9? I used the phrase a moment ago, in all likelihood, which I think was a phrase I'd obviously found on the internet, but they went so far as to say nearly 100% certain.
There was a large press conference and they said we are now 99.99% certain.
And I think that's not justified in your view?
I don't think the science backs that up. I simply can't.
Well, were you excited by the discovery? Were you excited by the fact that so many of us became interested in this bit of history, that probably lots of people began to think about Richard III for the first time? In other words, whether it's true or not, it's played an interesting role in our development as people conscious of our history.
Absolutely, undoubtedly. And I think one of the fascinating things about that is we're seeing less and less history in the classroom now. It's being squeezed ever further out of curriculums. But people have a real hunger for it. I mean, the national excitement around that, or around the film The Dig when it came out around Sutton Hoo, or actually even around, the Queen's recent funeral and the coronation we're going to see. When you read and listen to the debates that people are having about it, they really care about the historical angles in all these things and how it all fits together. So yes, as a historian, I'm delighted to see these things actually on the screen and in the media in ways that people can really consume them and get close to them.